Hello and good evening to you. Welcome to News 360 and it's live on News Up here at Desawe in Kanda. My name is Alfred Okansi.
And I am Aisha Yakubu. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
News 360 headlines is brought to you by Deluxe Paid,
GT Bank, and Calipo.
I want to use the platform of this message to make a sincere, passionate appeal to the leaders of the two main political parties in our country, MPP and NDC, to come together as soon as possible, preferably next week, to agree on appropriate measures to bring an end to this worrying and unacceptable phenomenon of vigilantism in our body politic.
President Akufo-Addo urges leadership of NDC and MPP to find lasting solution to the menace of political vigilantism.
Also, 79 factories under the flagship One District, One Factory program at various stages of construction and operation.
Meanwhile, pineapple farmers at Ekumfi Asokwa in the Central Region have expressed fear of not benefiting from the initiative despite the setting up of the Ekumfi pineapple factory.
And also in business tonight, the Economic Governance Platform calls for the restructuring or scrapping of the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council.
And on the international front, 5 fire sweeps through historic district of Bangladesh capital Dhaka, killing at least 78 people.
Bringing more stories, including some sports news and entertainment news tonight here on News 360. Remember, we're live on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook, and on 3news.com. Stay with us as we get into the bulletin tonight. Our first story this evening: if voluntary disbandment by the parties is not feasible, then I will initiate legislation on the matter. Quote. These were the words of President Akufo-Addo at his third State of the Nation address in Parliament today, while calling on the leadership of the two dominant political parties to come together to end political vigilantism.
Many Ghanaians have expressed disgust over the nefarious activities of political militias, popularly referred to as vigilantes. Apart from electoral violence in the past years, the recent incident at the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election and a shooting at the NDC party office in Kumasi have become a major wake-up call for a bipartisan approach to disband such groups. While awaiting recommendations from the Emil Short Commission on the Ayawaso West Wuogon violence probe, President Akufo-Addo made a strong case for a concerted effort to deal with the menace.
The time has come to put an end to the phenomenon of politically related violence. The only way in our system to begin to deal with such a situation is through the work of a commission of inquiry. Thankfully, I got 4 responsible Ghanaians of independent spirit who agreed to serve on the commission. I hope the findings and recommendations of the Emil Short Commission will enable us chart a path to ending politically related violence in our country.
President Akufo-Addo urged the NPP to extend a hand of invitation to the NDC to find ways of disbanding the activities of the political militias in the two dominant political parties.
I want to use the platform of this message to make a sincere, passionate appeal to the leaders of the two main political parties in our country, MPP and NDC, to come together as soon as possible, preferably next week, to agree on appropriate measures to bring an end to this worrying and unacceptable phenomenon of vigilantism in our body politic.
He prefers a solution if the parties are unable to disband them.
if voluntary disbandment by the parties is not feasible, then I will initiate legislation in the matter. Vigorous debate and the exchange of ideas should be the true basis of political dialogue and competition in our country, not the activities of party vigilante groups.
In a move to boost security, he said government has issued financial clearance to the police service to recruit 4,000 personnel.
But the opposition political parties say the president's call must be backed with actions.
Some political parties expressed satisfaction, adding that the call must be backed by action.
That's a first initiative and it's a good one.
And is the NDC going to be there?
Well, the executive will decide. I'm not the leader of the party.
We shouldn't deal with the macho men alone, but those who send them, their masters together. We need a legislation that will combine punitive measures, not only for the assailants from the vigilante groups, but their masters as well.
So when the president emphasized on the fact that he's not even ready, his party is ready to engage the NDC, and if the parties are not able to solve the problem, then he has no option but to pass a legislation, to bring a bill to parliament or maybe a law for it to be passed to ban vigilantism. That alone, I think I can sleep and sleep well today.
However, National Chairman of the People's National Convention, Bernard Mona, is of the view the call would not address the problem.
For the president to come and make this statement at this hour is nothing new, because he has been repeating it. There are instances he has called on Mr. Inspector General of Police to act with the law, and yet nothing has happened. You see, Mr. President doesn't need to come to Parliament to tell Parliament that this is what he wants to be seen happening. Mr. President should have come to Parliament to tell Parliament that in the wake of what happened, I actually have summoned the two political parties who have been the harbingers of this issue of vigilantism or political thuggery. And we have met and we have found a solution that will ensure that we are able to deal with it.
Meanwhile, the minority is saying that the NDC is ready to cooperate only if government would remove vigilantes recruited to join the national security. Evelyn Tengma has more.
The minority chief whip, Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, wants the NPP to set the pace.
They have incorporated into the national security. The minister said it, that they are now their staff. We all heard the DSP Azugu, that they are part of their staff. I hope that in the exercise to cleanse this vigilantism, we will go into the police, we will go into the military, we will go into the national security, and let us all identify any person that you think is NDC who is there, or any person who you think is MPP who is there, to equally be stripped. Because you cannot use the national security to absorb them. And then come later and tell us, oh, let's all disband them. When you have institutionalized yours, that becomes a difficulty.
But for MP for Laura, Anthony Kabo, the NDC has no moral justification to question the employment of perceived vigilantes in the public sector.
We have inherited the incorporated young men of the NDC in the national security. We inherited them. We haven't sacked them. They are acting professionally, and we hope that many of the MPP chaps who have also worked hard for their party to come to power, if there are opportunities, we must make them benefit from the opportunities, but they must act professionally, because they will also be inherited by another NDC government in the near future in 20, 30 years' time. And that is how it's going to work.
Deputy Majority Leader Adjoa Safo said the president's address was apt, even though some minority members disagreed.
He covered all the sectors and expectations of Ghanaian, issues that are pertinent, that are for national interest, that Ghanaians wanted to hear his voice on. He did. For instance, he talked about the violence during the by-election, how committed he is to the fight against violence in our by-election, and the fact that in our democracy within the sub-region, a lot of the countries look up to us.
For the president to come to the House to tell us that they inherited 1.2 billion Ghana cedis from the National Health Insurance, I'm sorry to say that's a lie, because the formula in this House was passed in 2017. The same formula for 2018, and then the budget of 2018, they are there. And we will use that to prove to the people of Ghana that this information cannot be accurate, it cannot be true.
On energy, MP for Elembele, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, said there were inaccuracies in the president's delivery.
The president made a very important error by saying that somehow Aker Oil had discovered oil. It is not true. The oil was discovered by Hess and then handed over that asset and sold that asset to Aker. Aker has appraised that area and found out that the discovery that Hess said was 250 million is actually more than the 250. So in the oil industry, we say there was an appraiser. It's not a discovery.
For me, peace, which dominated the State of the Nation address, made me feel that the president is exceptional. He made mention of the fact that the military is being equipped, the police service is being equipped in terms of logistics and personnel. He said it that come September, there is going to be an amendment, a referenda that will give powers for this conversation to carry. So for me,
some MPs lamented over the president's failure to touch on recent kidnappings.
Let's spend some time further on this. Josephine Nkrumah is the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. She joins me on the telephone. Madam, good evening to you. I thank you very much for your time this evening. Now, there are two fundamental issues underlining the formation of these vigilante groups. Lack of jobs, that's number one, and then lack of trust for the security agencies, the state security, by the opposition parties. So you hear the NDC say they don't trust the security agencies, that's why they have to form their own sort of private security. Then on the part of the incumbent government, they necessarily need to find jobs for these young people who provided security for them while they were in opposition. They get them into security agencies. So while we are engaging in this conversation of disbanding them, how is your institution also engaging to find solutions so that when we disband them, these youth will channel their energies into something meaningful?
Hello, good evening to your listeners, and thank you for having me. I didn't get the first part of the comment you passed, but if I understand you correctly, you want to find out what happens post the disbanding of the vigilante groups. Am I correct?
Fantastic. You got it right there.
Well, I think it's a multifaceted issue here or a complex issue that we are facing. So as we said, disbanding is just the first step of the process. Now you've disbanded them, but before when they were in active vigilantism, they were armed. So we have to look firstly at disarming them. Of course, that is a process that will require Small Arms Commission coming into the picture, and of course the security agencies as well. Post that, then you must look at how you will re-engage these people, these persons to be active citizens of the land. That again is something that NCC would have a critical role to play in re-engineering mindset to understand that they can contribute positively to politics or to nation building in their community or the country as a whole. So that, of course, will require the kinds of civic education that directs their minds in that fashion. Then again, we would have to look at particular groups that have been involved in this. Our engagements with the chief imam, for instance, reveals that a lot of the youth in Zongo are actually preyed upon by the politicians. So you have a situation where politicians use these youth because perhaps they don't have skill sets, they don't have jobs, and so we have to look at what kind of skill set you're giving the youth in these areas. So that must involve perhaps the Ministry of Zongo. So there has to be a certain interministerial approach to this as well. So there's civic education, there's the issue of disarming, there's the issue of re-engaging them in useful employment or training them with particular skill sets to become useful citizens that I believe every citizen has or can contribute to this nation. So NCC will continue to play its role in terms of civic education, but perhaps will be more targeted at these groups when it comes to the roadmap for post-disbanding these individuals. So it's a long process. It is not a simple one as we see. But the important thing is that political parties have agreed to this. I believe that there's good faith on both sides, but the more critical issue is what we do post the disbanding, and that is when all the relevant ministries, all the relevant institutions must come to play in ensuring that we have a group of people who contribute meaningfully to development in this country.
Certainly. Thank you for your time this evening. Josephine Nkrumah is a chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education at NCC.
Away from that, President Akufo-Addo says the country will fully utilize locally produced gas from the Western Enclave for power generation by the end of August. He gave the assurance in his 2019 State of the Nation address.
Gas production tripled during the year from 100 to 300 million cubic feet per day. The Ministry of Energy is undertaking steps to remove the transmission bottlenecks to ensure that Ghanaian gas can reach power plants located in the eastern part of the country. And I'm confident that by August this year, the situation would have been fully remedied to ensure Ghana uses locally produced gas for the bulk of its thermal power generation, saving substantial amounts of foreign exchange on imported fuels.
President Akufo-Addo gave an assurance the 10% target of renewable energy in the energy mix will be achieved.
Is that in spite of Ghana's excess electricity generation capacity, we can still not achieve our universal access target because there are many Ghanaian communities, especially those on islands and lakesides, that cannot be reached through the national grid. To reduce government's expenditure on utilities and also promote the use of solar power for government and public buildings, the Ministry of Energy initiated the solar rooftop program. The ministry is leading by example with the installation of a 65 kilowatt solar rooftop system at its premises. Jubilee House, Mr. Speaker, will also be powered as from August this year by solar energy. As an example to other public institutions.
He noted Accra Energy's discovery of an additional 550 million barrels of oil in the country provides a further boost to the economy.
There's no avoiding the fact that the oil industry, unfortunately, has a reputation for corruption. Since the discovery of oil in our country, there's been heightened anxiety amongst our people that we do not fall into the same trap of the oil money benefiting individual officials to the detriment of the state and the general public. On the fight against corruption in the oil industry and to aid transparency, we've established a national register of contracts on which all the petroleum agreements signed by the government have been published.
Well, let's still stay on the State of the Nation, but you saw that kiss planted by the First Lady on the cheek of the President. But in sharp contrast, this year's State of the Nation address was devoid of heckling and display of placards from the minority. Now, could it have been the reason for the kiss planted on the President's cheek by the First Lady after his delivery?
It was a gathering that brought together people from all walks of life. The location, Parliament House, and the mission was simply to brief Ghanaians on the state of the nation. The self-acclaimed Prince of Dagbon, first in the lineage of the kingdom, Prince Abudani, was present. His dressing this time round was, however, in sharp contrast to what he wore during the inauguration of the Overlord of Dagbon. Many were eager for a handshake. The Asin Central MP, Kennedy Japan, was elated. The Speaker of Parliament then acknowledged persons present.
The former President of the Republic, His Excellency, President John Mahama.
When it got to the turn of his wife Alberta, he had a grin, perhaps the look of love written all over his face.
My wife Alberta.
For 1 hour 36 minutes, the president touched on various sectors of the economy. It was not only about hard facts, but also lighter moments.
My pledge of improving sanitation in the country and making Accra the cleanest city in Africa by the end of my term. I said by the end of my term.
Subtle digs at the opposition NDC.
After many years of our looking and almost giving up, we took an MPP government to discover oil in 2007. In 8 years of NDC administration, 13 oil blocks were signed and not a single one was developed. The first one signed in 2017 under my government, which was with Accra, has led to the second biggest oil discovery in Africa. Mr. Speaker, this has led me to think that an MPP government must be good for Ghana.
If you still lose your bearing, even after the introduction of the digital address system, the president has a word for you.
We've joined the modern world, gradually leaving the right turn at the blue kiosk and opposite the Kofi Brookman Center behind us.
The president was then when addressing the issue of political vigilantism, but it looked like General Secretary of the NDC had something up his sleeves. When it all ended, Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu had a word for the president.
Let today mark the beginning of a rule of thumb that at all times, including when he will soon be succeeded, the same respect will be accorded.
When it was all over, the president was rewarded with a kiss by his wife Rebecca, and that gesture wrapped up Prince Abudani's State of the Nation address to Parliament.
Wow, that kiss was really quick.
It was a quick one.
It's more like a presidential kiss. It doesn't have to take too long. Else, you end up destabilizing something.
Yeah. Now, today on MTN Video Report, our citizen journalist George Amwasa reports on littering on the police checkpoint on the Tamale-Bolga Road.
A very good fertile land for agricultural growth. The place is so fertile and viable that anything they cultivate here grows. And you may mistake it to be a dumping site, but that is a big mistake. It's a police checkpoint. We have a lot of vehicles around here. You can see a vehicle's parked, the police is checking through. This has been the situation all the way from Bogatanga all the way to Tamale. Wherever you have a police spot, you find a lot of littering happening here. I think it's high time the police department also establish an environmental unit or have a policy whereby anytime they generate their waste, they take it along until they get to a dumping site and they dump them. George Amwasa reporting from Tamale to Bogatanga Road.
You can also send your video via 0551 433 044. Still to come in the bulletin. "79 factories under the flagship One District, One Factory program at various stages of construction and operation."
Meanwhile, pineapple farmers at Ekumfi Asokwa in the central region have expressed fear of not benefiting from the initiative despite the setting up of the Ekumfi pineapple factory.
And in business, economic governance platform call for the restructuring or scrapping of the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council.
And on the international front, a fire sweeps through historic district of Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, killing at least 78 people. This is live here on News 360. We're live on DSTV channel 279. Stay with us. There's a lot coming up in business with Parkwis Yasari. Thanks very much, Alfred and Aisha. Well, let's do some business news now. And the Economic Governance Platform, an umbrella body comprising 15 civil society organizations, has called for the restructuring or scrapping of the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council. Well, at a roundtable workshop in Accra, the group pointed out flaws in the framework establishing the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council.
Topic: the suitable model of fiscal council for Ghana, learning from the best practices. Dr. John Kwachi argued that the appointment of the members of the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council by the president could affect its independence.
The appointment by the president, the appointment of the council, attaching it to the president, being the council being resourced by the president, the tenure of the council being coterminous with the president means that it's also not a permanent body. We want an institution that will surpass governments, presidents.
He said the best practice is to have the fiscal council appointed by Parliament and support the work of the House through research.
If things should remain as they are, I don't regard this fiscal council to be the type that we need to help us, establish the institutional framework for maintaining or, entrenching long-term fiscal discipline in this country. That's my concern. In this current form, I don't believe that it will deliver the kind of the institutional structure and the functions that we want to see for an effective fiscal council.
Economist and head of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bokpin, agreed there was the need to improve the framework of the Fiscal Council to make it effective and efficient.
The form it has taken, our understanding is that it will not deliver on the targets, and therefore we are calling on government to take another look. They've taken an important step in doing this, but not exactly the form that they have operationalized it. The way it's been done is such that it will achieve limited effectiveness, and that is the point that we are making.
Government on February 12 inaugurated a 7-member Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council to act as an advisory board to the President on fiscal discipline. The core function of the council is to develop and recommend to the President fiscal responsibility policies for the maintenance of prudent and sustainable levels of public debt and ensure that fiscal balance is maintained at sustainable level, among others.
You're still watching the business news segment on News 360. Now, President Akufo-Addo has justified recent banking sector reforms that has led to the loss of over 12.7 billion cedis to the economy. Delivering the State of the Nation address, he described the previous state of the banking industry as traumatic and promised to ensure that perpetrators of wrongdoing will be prosecuted.
President Akufo-Addo, in reaction to issues within the financial sector, including the banking sector reforms, defended the cleansing up of an industry which he described as having suffered bad governance. The central bank closed down 2 additional universal banks in January this year and announced 23 banks as fit to operate in the country after the deadline for meeting the 400 million cedi capital requirement elapsed.
The woes of the banking sector have also been a case of long-standing bad practices that was previously been able to deal with, which we're now having to deal with in the most painful manner. The cleanup has cost the National Treasury 12.7 billion cedis, money we can ill afford, but which was necessary to sanitize the sector, minimize job losses, and protect deposits of 1,147,336 Ghanaians and their businesses and the people they employ. The banking sector has emerged stronger from these developments, has begun to re-inspire confidence in it. In all this, I've been anxious that our local banks are helped and given as much support as possible, which has been done. But I'll not be on the side of criminal behavior if that is discovered.
That was the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, speaking there at the State of the Nation address. Now, the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi is to benefit from a $25 million cardiothoracic surgery unit from the Chinese government through the Guangdong Provincial Hospital. The Chief Executive Officer of the hospital, Dr. Ohiniba Owusu-Danso, gave the hint at the West Africa International Health Summit in Accra.
The maiden edition of the West Africa International Health Summit presents a platform for hospital leaders, policymakers, and health professionals across borders to form partnerships. 130 speakers are expected to deliver 137 papers at the 3-day summit, with participants from 41 African countries.
We are looking at also creating job opportunities. You've seen a lot of international companies exhibiting here. Most of these are looking for local representatives, using this as the springboard to push medical tourism. When we get to that point, more health equipment companies will set up here. Whatever you need, you don't need to go outside the country, you'll get everything here.
Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Mike Okwe, called for the expansion of the pharmaceutical industry on the continent to promote development.
It is vital for us to expand our manufacturing capacity in collaboration with other friendly nations all over the world so that we can become leaders in that aspect of the industry as well.
10 MOUs will be signed for the provision of 10 dialysis centers on the continent. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have already signed MOUs for the provision of 2 each of the 10 dialysis centers. CEO of Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ohiniba Owusu-Danso, recounted some of the support from the Chinese government through the Guangdong Provincial Hospital.
The Chinese government is about granting us the facility to construct the second cardiothoracic center in Ghana at Konfanochi. Konfanochi is also being listed as one of the 5 centers in Africa as members of the Ambulatory Surgery International Organization, where research and expansion of ambulatory surgeries internationally is concerned.
Ambulatory surgery centers are same-day healthcare facilities where surgical procedures not requiring an overnight hospital stay are performed. Cote d'Ivoire's Minister of Health and Public Hygiene, Eugene Aka, said the summit will provide a learning experience from Ghana.
Neonatal, death and issues like that are one of the key challenges of the health, of health in Cote d'Ivoire. Maybe Ghana has something to teach Cote d'Ivoire in that matter. So we are here to talk. We are here to get more ideas.
The West Africa International Health Summit is under the theme Collaborating Through Networking and Technology for Improved Healthcare in Africa.
Well, that's all for the very latest in business news stories. For more news, you can log on to our website, 3news.com. My name is Parkwisi Asari. Over to you, Aisha.
Thank you so much, Pa Kwesi. Now, President Akufo-Addo says 79 factories under his flagship One District, One Factory program are at various stages of construction and operation, barely 2 years into his government. He says the initiative has aroused the interest of young people to go into manufacturing.
The One District, One Factory initiative was a campaign promise the governing New Patriotic Party, NPP, made to the electorate ahead of the 2016 general elections. The program is intended to equip and empower communities to utilize their local resources in the manufacture of products in high demand, both locally and internationally. President Akufo-Addo noted that aside the 79 factories that are at various stages of construction and operation, some other 35 are going through credit appraisal.
The One District, One Factory policy has taken off. And 79 factories under the scheme are at various stages of operation or construction. Another 35 are going through credit appraisal. All told, there's a lot of activity going on under the scheme, and it has awoken the interest of young people to go into manufacturing business.
He is optimistic the successes chalked by the initiative would contribute tremendously in transforming the economy.
Let's stay with One District, One Factory. Pineapple farmers at Ekumfi Asokwa near Mankesim in the central region fear they will not benefit from the One District, One Factory initiative despite the setting up of the Ekumfi Pineapple Factory. Now, they argue pricing of their produce is a disincentive while the factory cannot employ many of the teeming unemployed youth in the area. They spoke to Spencer Kwabena Boateng Mensah.
Government in the run-up to the 2016 elections pledged to ensure a factory in each of the country's districts under the One District, One Factory initiative. 8 months into office, President Akufo-Addo, while commissioning the first factory in the central region, gave the people of Ekumfi an assurance that the initiative is indeed the right way to go. The pineapple factory, upon completion, would process juice for both the local and international markets. But some pineapple farmers at Ekumfi argue the factory cannot employ the high number of unemployed youth in the area. They lament low pricing of their produce as also a disincentive.
The work is difficult. We do not even get people to buy from us when we harvest them.
Traders from Mankesim purchase one pineapple for 70 pesos at Ekumfi Asokwa and retail it on the market at 80 pesos. Grace Nkrumah has come to purchase pineapple. She's rather concerned about the deplorable roads in the area.
The road is very poor, so it makes it difficult to transport goods.
The road linking Mankesim and Winneba is deplorable and drivers charge higher unapproved fares. According to the assemblyman of the area, Stephen Kojoakwa, the stretch was captured in government's 2017 budget, instilling hope in the people that the road would have been constructed last year. For the people of Ekumfi Asokwa, their hope in the One District, One Factory initiative is waning.
You're still live on News 360. We take a break. We'll be back with sports.
Hello there, good evening. My name is Miriam Osei Ajiman. Let's do some entertainment news tonight. Now, the creative arts industry has every right to rejoice after President Nana Akufo-Addo, in his third State of the Nation address, revealed the World Bank's approval of a whopping $40 million grants to support the tourism ministry and its agencies to help upgrade tourist facilities. He also added that plans were underway to complete 2 regional theaters.
The 2019 State of the Nation address must have brought a lot of smiles on faces of stakeholders in the creative arts sector. President Akufo-Addo revealed the Creative Arts Bill is ready for passage into law. The legal instruments that will facilitate the coordination and regulation of all the sectors of the creative arts.
We've also worked to finalize the Creative Arts Bill, leading to the setting up of the Creative Arts Fund. For the first time in 2018, the government provided support to the Creative Arts Council and the Creative Arts Masterclass to build capacity of creative arts practitioners has also commenced.
He announced plans for the construction of a theatre in Kumasi, the Ashanti regional capital.
The Eastern Regional Theatre has been completed and work is currently ongoing towards the construction of the Kumasi Theatre.
He revealed plans to revamp the creative arts sector.
We're continuing with the initiative to improve the creative arts sector. Our bank has approved a $40 million grant to support the Tourism Ministry and its agencies to help upgrade tourist facilities. The Hospitality Training Institute has been renovated and reopened in July 2018 to provide needed training in the hospitality and tourism sectors. Under Tourism Attractions Upgrade Project, several tourist sites, including Elmina Heritage Bay, Axin Fort St. Antonio, at St. Mansour Slave River, Tetekwashi Cocoa Farm, Bonsu Abertun, Kintampo Waterfalls are undergoing upgrades.
Surely that's something to smile about. But away from that, following the increasing trend of portrayal of women as sex objects in movies and music videos, the entertainment desk here at TV3 sought to find out the reaction of ladies towards such acts.
The discourse of women being portrayed as sex objects in movies and music videos has become a trend. Many frown upon this act, but let's find out what other women think about this trend. Let's get talking.
Maybe that's the only option they have. They're not getting jobs, and that's the only means of getting a job and getting an income from it. A source of income can come from anything, but how good is that source? How credible and most of all, the integrity of you as a woman. How well are you portraying this thing as an income? There are a lot of legit business around you can do. You don't need to appear nude in videos or just anything for somebody to get income.
It's heartbreaking because as a woman, if you see your fellow woman out there exposing their body and all those things, it's very painful and it's a disgrace to womanhood. So we ladies, we have to advise ourselves.
It has become a fashion, but sometimes when they are doing those things, they have to watch it.
Well, that's about it for entertainment news tonight. There's more on 3news.com. And Miriam Osei-Ajman. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening too. Miriam, thank you. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're indeed grateful that you spent some 60 minutes with us here on News 360. My name is Alfred Okanse.
And I am Aisha Yakubu. Do have a good evening.